Ever feel like your mind is just completely out of control? Thoughts going everywhere?
Oh, yeah.
Like a wild horse, you know?
Totally.
Today, we're diving into jhana,
Okay.
which is this practice described in Buddhist texts.
Yeah.
That's less about like breaking that horse.
Okay.
And more about training it with incredible precision.
What's so fascinating about jhana is that it's not really about emptying your mind at all.
Oh, really?
It's more about cultivating focus so intensely.
Okay.
It's almost like mental weightlifting.
Interesting.
We're going to be using excerpts from a meditation guide
Okay.
for this deep dive today. And it's less like a list of ingredients for jhana and more like a seasoned reviewer
Oh.
describing a mental state,
Yeah.
helping you discern the subtle flavors.
So it's not just a recipe. It's like a guide to a Michelin star experience for your mind.
Exactly.
Whoa.
And just like reading a rave review of some really complex dish,
Yeah.
knowing the ingredients doesn't mean you can just recreate it. Our source really emphasizes that understanding the elements of jhana is very different from experiencing it.
Got it.
Okay.
Okay. I am intrigued. Let's dig into this mental tasting menu. What would be the first course on the path to jhana?
All right. So the first jhana, the foundation, is described as having 5 factors.
Okay.
But instead of steps, think of them more as qualities you'd expect
Yep.
in like a perfectly executed dish.
Okay.
The first one is directed thought.
Okay.
And to me, that's like the difference between a wild horse and one trained for dressage.
So instead of thoughts just like scattering like startled birds, it's
Yeah.
like laser focus?
Precisely.
Okay.
Like choosing one point, like the feeling of your breath and keeping your attention there,
Yeah.
you know, not chasing after every mental squirrel that darts by.
Okay. That sounds a lot easier said than done.
Sure.
What if my mind is more like a room full of puppies? Adorable, but completely unfocused.
Right. Well, that's where the second factor, evaluation, comes in. Think of it as like a discerning palate, constantly sampling and asking,
Right.
how's the breath right now? Is my attention steady or has it kind of wandered off?
So it's not just passively observing. There's an active, almost critical element to it.
It's more like a curious scientist, you know,
Right.
observing and adjusting,
Yeah.
refining the experiment.
Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting because
Yeah.
skillful evaluation isn't just judgment.
Oh.
It's actually creative problem solving applied to your own mind.
Ooh.
You see?
Yeah. Okay. I see that.
Okay.
So we're directing our thoughts.
Right.
We're evaluating. What's the next ingredient in this jhana recipe?
Singleness of preoccupation,
Okay.
like a spotlight focusing on the lead singer.
Yeah.
Your awareness becomes completely absorbed by one thing, the breath.
Right.
Okay. The mental chatter fades. The distractions dim.
That sounds really peaceful, but also a little intense.
It can be.
Is this where the rapture and pleasure come in? The 4th and 5th factors you were talking about?
Precisely. These are the natural results of those first 3 factors,
Okay.
working in perfect harmony.
Okay.
Rapture can be subtle. It can be intense,
Right.
a feeling of joy, or even like a physical buzz.
And pleasure, well, that's probably self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our source cautions against becoming too attached to these pleasurable feelings.
Oh, why? If it feels good, shouldn't we just enjoy it? Is there like a downside to getting a little blissed out?
Think of it this way. If you're so focused on savoring
Yeah.
a delicious smell, you might miss out on the subtleties of the taste.
Right.
So if we chase the rapture, we actually lose that focus.
I see.
The very thing that generated those feelings in the first place.
Interesting.
Okay. The key is to stay with the breath
Right.
and let those feelings arise naturally.
That's a really subtle distinction.
Yeah.
So in jhana practice, are we retraining our minds to find pleasure in the focus itself, not just in the side effects?
Exactly.
Wow.
It's like appreciating the craftsmanship of a perfectly balanced dish, not just indulging in the sweet or spicy notes.
This is reminding me of how we evaluate things in our daily lives. You know, a movie we watch or a new gadget or something.
Yeah.
Jhana seems to be about bringing that skill to our internal world.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We're constantly evaluating, right?
Yeah.
Jhana is simply refining that ability and applying it to the subtlest object of all, our own awareness.
So we've sort of set the table with the 5 factors of the first jhana, this focused attention on the breath.
Right.
Where does the experience go from here?
Our source describes this fascinating shift where your awareness expands beyond just the breath.
Oh.
And it's not that you're creating new awareness.
Right.
It's that you're connecting to what's already present throughout your body.
Can you give like an example of what that might feel like?
Sure. The Source uses this really good analogy.
Okay.
Just like breath energy flowing through the body brings it alive.
Right.
Connecting your focused attention to that background awareness of your body creates this really full, alert experience.
Okay, so we're not just focused in our minds, we're bringing the whole body into the experience.
It's more like we're unifying the mental and physical, bringing them into harmony.
Yeah.
And this is where the transition to the second jhana begins.
Oh, I am definitely curious to explore what that second jhana has in store. But before we move on, maybe we should recap what we've learned so far.
That's a great idea. Let's give our listener a moment to digest all of this.
Yeah.
Before we venture into deeper states of concentration. What stood out to you about the first jhana? What resonated most?
Well, I think what's really sticking with me is this idea of directed thought. And how it's not about forcing the mind to be quiet, but about gently guiding it towards a single point of focus.
That's a great point.
It's like instead of trying to stop the waves, we're learning to surf them.
Beautiful analogy.
Yeah.
And what about the role of evaluation? How did that concept strike you?
You know, at first I thought it sounded a bit harsh, like we're constantly criticizing our own minds.
Yeah, I could see that.
But the way you explained it, it's more about being curious and observant, like a scientist studying a fascinating phenomenon.
Exactly. It's about bringing a sense of mindful inquiry to our inner experience.
Right, and I think that's a really key distinction. It's not about judgment, it's about understanding.
Well said.
And then there's the whole idea of rapture and pleasure as natural byproducts of this focused attention. That's really intriguing to me.
Yeah.
Because it suggests that these blissful states aren't something we have to chase or grasp at.
Right.
They arise organically when we cultivate the right conditions in our minds.
Exactly. It's like planting a seed and nurturing it.
Right.
The flower blooms naturally as a result of the care we provide.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think it speaks to the power of this practice.
Definitely.
Even if we never achieve some kind of mystical jhana state, simply understanding these principles and applying them in our daily lives can lead to greater peace and clarity.
Absolutely. It's about cultivating a new way of relating to our own minds.
Right. And recognizing that we have the potential to train our attention, to cultivate joy.
Yes.
And to experience those moments of deep inner peace.
That's at the heart of it all.
So all of this talk about jhana has really piqued my curiosity about what lies ahead on this path of mental mastery.
Well, then let's delve into the mysteries of the second jhana.
Okay.
Where the terrain becomes even more subtle and profound.
All right, let's do it. But first, I think our listeners could use a moment to reflect on what we've covered so far.
Good idea.
If the first jhana is about training our attention like a wild horse, finding that single point of focus, what do you think awaits us in the second jhana? What could possibly be deeper than this?
That's a great question to ponder. We'll unravel those mysteries after a short break. Stay tuned.
Okay, so we've sort of established that foundation of the first jhana.
Right.
That focused attention, the evaluation, that singleness of mind that brings about those feelings of rapture and pleasure.
And we touched upon the subtle trap.
Right.
Those pleasurable feelings, not the destination.
Yeah.
Just part of the scenery.
Exactly.
You know, don't chase them. Let them arise naturally from the focus itself.
So if the first jhana is like training a wild horse to walk a precise path, what awaits us in the second? What does our source say?
This is where things get really interesting. The second jhana is described as a state where that directed thought and evaluation that we've been cultivating in the first jhana, they begin to recede.
Wait, hold on. Those were like the key players in the first jhana?
Right.
We spent all this time honing those, and now they just fade away.
Not fade away exactly.
Wow.
Think of it more like a transition. They become so refined, so unified with your awareness, that they're no longer experienced as separate efforts.
Okay. I'm picturing it like this. At first, you're like consciously directing your attention, like manually steering a car. But in the second jhana, it's like cruise control kicks in. The focus is just effortless, smooth.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And what takes center stage in the second jhana is this incredible sense of inner stillness and joy.
Okay.
The text calls it rapture born of unification.
Wow.
Sometimes even ecstasy.
They're the word that grabs your attention.
Yeah.
Ecstasy.
Yeah.
So it's even more intense than the rapture we experienced in the first jhana.
Not necessarily about intensity.
Okay.
More about quality.
Right.
Remember how we talked about unifying breath energy and awareness throughout the body? Well, in the second jhana, that unification deepens.
Yeah.
It's a profound sense of wholeness.
Right.
Of being completely absorbed in the present moment.
That sounds so blissful.
It can be.
But is there still an object of focus? Like the breath? In this second jhana?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Or is it more about just being present with this ecstatic state?
Yeah.
That is a question that has been debated by meditators and scholars for centuries.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Some interpretations suggest that the breath subtly remains as an anchor,
Okay.
even if it's not consciously attended to.
So like a background hum.
Yeah.
Almost imperceptible.
Right.
But still grounding.
Exactly.
Okay.
Others propose
Yeah.
that the object of focus in the second jhana is this very state of unification itself.
Okay.
The joy, the tranquility, the wholeness.
So maybe there's not just one definitive answer.
Could be.
It could be the breath. It could be this state of unification.
Right.
Or maybe some interplay of both.
Possibly.
It's so fascinating to me how much mystery still surrounds this practice,
I know.
even though it's been around for so long.
Yeah, what I find really interesting
There.
is how our source emphasizes that the second jhana isn't just a passive state of bliss.
Oh.
It still requires a high degree of
Okay.
mental discipline and refinement.
So even though it feels effortless,
Right.
like we're on cruise control,
Yeah.
we're still working, still honing our mental skills.
Exactly.
It's like we've leveled up in our mental weightlifting training.
Precisely.
Okay.
And the text hints that these skills we develop in the second jhana
Yeah.
are crucial for progressing to even deeper states of concentration.
Really?
The third and fourth jhanas.
Ooh, there's that cliffhanger feeling again.
Yeah.
But before we jump ahead, let's bring this back to our listener.
Okay, good point.
Why should anyone listening care about this second jhana,
Right.
even if they've never meditated before?
Yeah.
What's the takeaway here for the average person?
Well, think about it.
Oh.
We all experience moments of joy,
Yeah.
of deep connection, of feeling completely present and alive.
Right.
Those fleeting moments that make us think, this is it.
Yeah.
This is what life is all about.
I know exactly what you mean. Like that awe-inspiring sunset.
Yeah.
Or a moment of just pure laughter with loved ones.
Exactly. Jhana, particularly the second jhana, is about cultivating the ability to access those states more intentionally
Okay.
and for longer periods.
Wow.
It's about training the mind to experience deep joy and peace.
Right?
Not just as fleeting moments,
Yeah.
but as a more stable and accessible part of our being.
So even if achieving jhana sounds like this really lofty goal,
Yeah.
just understanding the principles behind it gives us a new appreciation for the potential of our minds.
Right.
It's inspiring to think we have this capacity to cultivate such profound states of peace and well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember that this is a journey,
Right.
a process of gradually refining our attention and awareness.
Right. It's not about expecting to snap our fingers and instantly achieve jhana. It takes practice, patience, and a willingness to explore the depths of our own minds. But the rewards, as our source suggests, are well worth the effort.
Speaking of rewards, are you ready to explore what the third jhana has in store?
You bet. But first, let's give our listeners a moment to ponder this.
Okay.
If the second jhana is about unifying our experience and cultivating this deep sense of joy, what do you think that next level of concentration might involve?
Ooh.
What does it mean to go even deeper into this state of mental mastery?
Interesting.
All right, we're back, and I'm ready to hear about this third jhana. It sounds like we're going even deeper into this mental training.
Yes, the terrain of the third jhana is even more subtle than the second.
Oh.
Yeah.
Fasten your mental seatbelts. Our listeners are probably still pondering that question we left them with.
Right.
If the second jhana is all about unification and joy, what could possibly come next? What does our source tell us?
So the third jhana is described as a state of profound equanimity.
Equanimity.
Yeah.
That's a word you don't hear every day.
No, you don't.
What does it actually mean in this context?
It's often translated as like even-mindedness or mental balance. It's a state of being completely at ease, undisturbed by the constant fluctuations of pleasure and pain, excitement and boredom.
So it's not that we stop experiencing those things.
Right.
It's that they don't have the same power over us.
Exactly.
We're not getting caught up in the highs and lows.
Yeah, our source describes it as a state of pure awareness, clear and radiant, like a still pond perfectly reflecting the sky.
Okay, that's a beautiful image.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest, it also sounds a little...
Yeah.
Dare I say, boring.
I can understand why you might think that.
Okay.
But remember, this is a highly refined state of consciousness.
Right.
It's not dullness or apathy.
Okay.
It's about this really profound inner stability and peace that transcends the fleeting pleasures of the senses.
So it's like we've moved beyond needing that constant external stimulation. The contentment comes from within.
Precisely.
Okay.
And our source even suggests that this inner peace, this equanimity, is incredibly powerful.
Really?
Yeah. It allows us to face challenges with more clarity and composure without being completely overwhelmed by our emotions.
That's a superpower we could all use a bit more of, I think.
Right.
Imagine just navigating life's ups and downs with that kind of unshakable peace.
Yeah, it's a profound aspiration.
Yeah.
And the path to it, as described in our source.
Okay.
It isn't about suppressing or denying our experiences.
Oh.
It's about cultivating a wise and compassionate awareness that can hold all aspects of life without being completely swept away.
So we're not aiming to become emotionless robots.
No.
But finding a deeper level of balance and understanding.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway for our listener.
Right.
Whether or not you're drawn to formal meditation practice, this idea of cultivating equanimity, of finding that inner stillness amidst the chaos of life, is something we can all aspire to.
Absolutely. As we wrap up this deep dive into jhana, I'm struck by how these states of concentration, which seem so complex, they're actually based on such relatable principles. It's about training our attention, cultivating awareness, and discovering that inner peace that's already within each of us.
Well said. We've only scratched the surface of this topic, of course. But hopefully it sparked a sense of curiosity for our listener.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's inspired you to explore your own mind a little further.
Yeah.
To discover those hidden depths of your inner world.
And who knows, maybe you'll even start to experience glimpses of these jhana states in your everyday life.
Yeah.
A moment of deep focus, a surge of joy, a sense of unshakable peace. These are all possibilities when we learn to pay attention, to cultivate awareness, and to nurture that inner stillness that connects us all. Until next time, keep diving deep.